it's Joy, and in today's video, I want to dive into what I feel has been a popular topic lately that has been brought to light when it comes to Eugenia Cooney. People keep using the words, she does toxic positivity. Toxic positivity, and we're seeing it a lot of different places. What is that? What does it mean? And more importantly, is there something missing? Because I think that there is. Now, I've done several other videos on Eugenia Cooney. If you haven't seen those, go see those now, like a series part 1 through 4, I believe. Go check some of those out before you watch this one. This one might not make as much sense, but make sure and go check those out as well. I have videos on Onision, Shane Dawson, Trisha Paytas, Britney Spears, and a lot of other different trending topics or things that you might be interested to hear my take on. But I really wanted to go over this one because if you guys have listened and heard my story, I've said that I really resonate with Eugenia and I feel like I very much understand her. And that is because when I look at Eugenia and the dynamic between her and her mother, which is something I really want to dive into, and her family, I feel like I see a lot of remnants and I see a lot of elements of what I grew up around. Now, why are people consistently saying Eugenia is displaying or just doing this toxic positivity? Well, number one, Eugenia just comes across as a sweet, kind-hearted girl. However, a lot of people are saying it's like outside of that sweet and niceness, she doesn't have any other emotion. And she doesn't even really allow her personality too much to come through. It's just nothing but sweetness. And no matter what, she's trying to be sweet and kind no matter what. Now, there are times where she will speak up on something, but to a lot of people that comes across as passive-aggressive, which passive-aggressive and being passive-aggressive can also kind of be a form of toxic positivity. You're not really confronting somebody. You're giving, you're kind of giving these backhanded insults, but in a way that's really disguised, so you're not having to be direct while masking it with something that could look positive, kind of like in the South when they go, bless your little heart, and really they're saying, oh, you're so dumb, aren't you? It's kind of that same topic. I think there's one big element to this argument people are missing when they're talking about Eugenia and toxic positivity. And I want to get into what toxic positivity is, but I also want to give my take on this. If you are a survivor of any type of people being mean to you, please infer specifically and especially if you grow up with it in a very negative, toxic family dynamic. The one that's always getting all the crap from everybody, because typically in a family, depending on what the different types of personalities and what types of mental illnesses are going on, whether it's narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopath, different family members play different roles within that family dynamic of how unhealthy it is. And from what I feel like I've observed, I feel like Eugenia is the one to use and the one to not be nice to take things out on. And we've seen this in past videos of her where she says, my family is really crazy and I've kind of realized that they'll come in my room and just scream at me and be mean to me over nothing. And I think that they put all the pressure and rely on her to make all the money and continue their lifestyle while also thinking that they can just dump on her, what they call the kicking dog. If you guys have heard this analogy, so husband comes home, he's mean to the wife, then the wife ends up being mean to her children, the children end up being mean to the dog. They just pass it on until it's the very last person, the most vulnerable person. I know because in my family, I was that person. I am still that person, which is why I try to keep my family at a distance. Sometimes your families can be so toxic, you just have to step away, and that's okay. We have this narrative in society that says, but it's your family, it's your blood. Right, but if they are not good for your well-being, that does not matter. You need to make sure and take care of you first in the best way that you can. So in this dynamic where she's kind of the kicking dog of the situation, here's what can happen. You can end up taking on, and I think this is what we've seen from Eugenia, more of a people pleaser role. So what is people pleasing? And I feel like it's kind of self-explanatory, but basically it's a defense mechanism and a trauma tactic on trying to keep everyone happy around you so that nobody is mean to you. And it's interesting because if you look at Eugenia's videos when she was younger, her voice was deeper and she kind of had more of a rebellious kind of, I don't care, screw it kind of attitude, right? Over time, it's become more of like this Disney princess really high-pitched, and high-pitched where it seems like it could be a little bit unnatural. Because here's the thing. I was a trained classical singer. I know a lot about voice. Typically, women's voices, as they mature, they get lower. You know, we think men are the only ones who go through vocal puberty. Women go through it too. It's just not nearly as dramatic and nearly as pronounced. So you would think you would see her voice actually maybe deepen a little bit over time. And instead it's gone to this high pitch. And it's just constantly everything is okay and everything is happy. And we've watched Eugenia really lie and manipulate on behalf of her family and misrepresent situations. So what's going on? Is this toxic positivity and she's just lying? Or are these traits of being a survivor from this type of domestic situation? And that's what I want to explore, because anybody who's grown up being the kicking dog or being in that type of family environment, many times you'll recognize that you yourself is the people pleaser. I'm 36 going on 37, and I am just now, it's been over the last year or two, I've really been understanding this about myself. And this is where I also kind of want to explain. I think a lot of people think Eugenia is lying and she's just bold-faced lying about certain things. Guys, I think what she's doing is more people-pleasing. And yes, I would say people-pleasing would be a form of toxic positivity. Absolutely. But it goes a layer deeper. Because I've been in that situation before where it's not that I was trying to lie to people, but I would give them a skewed perception of what was going on to try to make them feel comfortable and make them feel happy. Like if there were two friends I knew didn't like each other who were kind of fighting, but they had to be in the same space, I would sugarcoat everything to the two of them to try to make it so that it could be peaceful if they had to be around each other or around me. Does that make sense? So yeah, you could call that lying, but it wasn't intentional. In my mind, I was trying to make things okay for everybody. And the weird thing is, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And I had a former friend who would be like, you lied. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it hurt me because I was like, I'm not a liar. I don't understand. And it took me a few years to go, oh, I think what they're referring to, or partially, is my ability when it comes to people pleasing. And what can happen? You can get so lost in trying to make other people happy, you just lose who you are as a person. But when you are constantly devalued and people treat you like nobody even wants you there, and people just put all the pressure on you, but nobody wants you there, which I feel like maybe in some ways what Eugenia goes through, you feel like you don't have, there's no justifiable reason for you to exist. Therefore, you are existing to make everybody else happy and kind of keep the peace, the peacemaker. I feel like that's what Eugenia's intention is. The problem is she ends up doing damage to some of the people around her, like the people that try to help her, like Jaclyn, Glenn. And granted, we don't know the full story. We know Jaclyn's side of it, and it seems fairly credible, but there can always be more going on that we don't know. But why is it then we catch Eugenia kind of tripping up on certain things or kind of lying to protect other people? And I think that's what it is. So I want to pull up some information so you guys have this, because again, I think this is good info to know. I'm frustrated that this is all stuff that I'm, figuring out at 35 and now kind of continuing that journey. But I think it's good info to know, especially if you come from this type of environment. So this is from Healthline. It says toxic positivity is real and it's a big problem during the virus issue. We shouldn't have to pretend that everything is okay when it isn't. So I'm going to scroll down to where it says, what is toxic positivity? It says toxic positivity is the assumption, either by oneself or others, that despite a person's emotional pain or difficult situation, they should only have a positive mindset, or my pet peeve term, positive vibes, explains Dr. Jamie Zuckerman, a clinical psychologist in Pennsylvania who specializes in, among other things, anxiety disorders and self-esteem. Toxic positivity can take many forms. It can be a family member who chastises you for expressing frustration instead of listening to why you're upset. It can be a comment to look on the bright side or be grateful for what you have. It can be a meme that tells you just change your outlook and be happy. It can be a friend who repeatedly posts how productive they're being during lockdown. It can be your own feelings that you shouldn't dwell on your feelings of sadness, anxiety, loneliness, and fear. With toxic positivity, negative emotions are seen as inherently bad. Instead, positivity and happiness are compulsively pushed, and authentic human emotional experiences are denied, minimized, or invalidated. The pressure to appear okay invalidates the range of emotions we all experience, says Carolyn Carroll, a psychotherapist in Baltimore, Maryland. It can give the impression that you are defective when you feel distress, which can be internalized in a core belief that you are inadequate or weak. Carroll continues, judging yourself for feeling pain, sadness, jealousy, which are part of the human experience and are transient emotions, lead to what are referred to as secondary emotions, such as shame, that are much more intense and maladaptive. They distract us from the problem at hand, and they don't give us space for self-compassion, which is so vital to mental health. Zuckerman says that toxic positivity at its core is an avoidance strategy used to push away and invalidate any internal discomfort. But when you avoid your emotions, you actually can cause yourself and others more harm. And this is why I wanted to kind of bring up the argument, is what she's doing toxic positivity? Because I don't think she's just trying to say, because toxic positivity would be like, if I go to somebody, like a friend of mine, and I'm like, hey, can I talk? I'm really having a bad day. You know what? Just grow up and get over it. Be grateful for everything you have. Why even be sad about that? Well, you can be, like, here's the thing, guys. I am so much happier than I was now that I figured out my health and I'm getting better. It's still a work in progress, believe me. But I'm so much happier. But I have down days and I have down moments. But I can still feel the peace of being grateful and having gratitude and acknowledge, you know what? I'm really sad. I'm really messed up about this situation right now. And that's okay. And it's healthy to admit this is where you're at in a situation. So it's people who would basically, it's people or situations who say, it is not okay for you to experience negativity. And what that ends up doing is it ends up being really selfish. There tends to be either a selfish or misguided motive behind that, because what ends up happening is people are saying, I can't deal with you having your human experiences right now. Don't have them around me because it could mess me up. And I don't think that that's necessarily everyone's intention, but that's what it ends up doing. I know toxic positivity all too well because as a former New Ager, there's a lot of this weird, like fake plastered smiles. Love and light. Everything is love. Don't fear. Fear is the worst emotion possible. No anger. There's nothing to fear because all is one. If I am you and you are me and we are reflecting in each other, just all this crazy nonstop rhetoric of just talking in circles to where you need to feel good all the time and never take any responsibility for anything. You know, like a psychopath. Yeah, the new age stuff, people who do that. And by the way, I say that, I still have a lot of the new age, like I still like a lot of the new age things. I love the idea of reincarnation. I love tarot card readings. You know, like I love the concept of heaven and the afterlife. Like I'm very spiritual in that area, but I just can't handle the crap. I can't handle the people because there's a lot of P words in those areas. Oh, there's a lot of victim shaming and P words. I don't go for any of that. But so I have a lot of firsthand knowledge, or I'm a business person, being in the business world. There's a lot of these people. Oh my gosh, I dated a guy and his dad was obsessed with Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is the ultimate, you know, positive, toxic positivity machismo, in my opinion. And like he would make his office, he owned an office, and people would work for him, and every like once an hour they'd get up and like have to get all pumped up and stuff, and like, and the guy himself just, there were times where it was like, I mean, I'm just gonna give an example, like a funeral where you should be sad and just inappropriately bouncing off the walls, almost to try to show, see, I'm above you human beings and the emotion, like it was nuts. So I've dealt with this quite a bit, and I'm super not a fan. And funny enough, a lot of times those people end up being kind of maniacal, or they kind of have what to me, I'm not saying this is the case, I'm not diagnosing, but what looks like states of mania, because they'll go from that to if somebody challenges them, or if they can't stay in that state for some reason, then they can get into this anger and this rage. You know, so it kind of goes back and forth, or it comes out in spurts, because you got to keep that positive image. So I don't like a lot of the new age stuff, or at least the communities of people. I mean, I'm sure it's not all of them, but it's enough. Like, it's weird. When I was younger, I grew up in a very conservative area, but conservative back then is different. Back then, conservative was like, you know, anti-LGBT, right? And I was pro, do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting people. So I was very pro LGBT. And I was always told, like, you need to go to these places, like, you know, different cities that were really liberal, like Boulder, Colorado and Seattle, which I lived in. And I love the cities. The cities themselves were beautiful. Oh, Lord have mercy. The people, though, it was tough. It was challenging because there was that consistent mindset, and I was like, I will go into a bar with rednecks any day over having to have a conversation, because there's no way to have a conversation with people like that. You can't really have a depth of a conversation. Everything is a twist and a turn to not take responsibility. So that's what toxic positivity is. I don't think that's necessarily what Eugenia is doing or what her intention is. I think that's a byproduct, or more like a side effect, of what's really happening. And that is an extreme form of people pleasing, which comes from people hurting you. It's a survivor tactic that we do. So let's go into what people pleasing is. This is from Psychology Today. It says, from parent pleasing to people pleasing, how craving others' approval can sabotage healthy self-development. And it says what it looks like and how it feels. People pleasers are proficient at pleasing everyone but themselves. They are master accommodators, intuiting what is wanted of them, and, in both word and deed, bestowing on others the attentiveness and care they'll typically deny themselves. So frequently, do they defer to others' preferences that at some point they'll actually lose sight of their own, regarding their value in life as based on their value to others. People pleasers, so adept at nurturing those around them, literally don't know how to nurture themselves. And because safeguarding relationships is the way they've learned to bolster their fragile egos, they are unable to recognize that the ultimate cost of devoting themselves to the welfare of others is nothing less than sacrificing their own selfhood. Ring any bells, guys? Viewing their worth and personal security as totally hinging on pleasing people or placating others, they end up forgetting who they are and what they themselves need to be fulfilled. People pleasers, so dependent on being approved and accepted by others, are incapable of validating themselves independent of others' confirmation, afraid to speak their mind for fear of the opinions or preferences that might be at odds with whomever they're with. They end up painfully indecisive, afraid to take initiative or in any way rock the boat. In their unceasing efforts to avoid conflict and confrontation and to get along with everyone in their life, only rarely do they express their true thoughts and feelings. In fact, they frequently don't even know what they believe in or what's important to them. Chameleons, they endeavor to blend in to be as much as possible like whoever they're with, and being deferential and subordinate to others, particularly to those they're closest to, so they can easily attract people with a strong need to control, consequently further magnifying a demeanor that is too obsequious to begin with. Typically, having unresolved issues with controlling parents, they can themselves be attracted to dominating, manipulative people, ironically, who are perfectly suited to perpetuate old patterns of parental mistreatment. So that's a little insight there just from Psychology Today. But I want to go ahead and go in a little more in depth in this so you can see this. So one thing we have here, which I think is interesting, this is from J. Reid Psychotherapy. And this says why being a people pleaser means you are a survivor. So it's it's a little bit of a read, but I think it's good info if this is something you're into. So it says, a case illustration. John was a successful 28-year-old software engineer. He explained that he lives his life through the eyes of others instead of his own. He was acutely aware of how others might perceive him and adjusted his behavior, speech, everything to try to please them. In his life, John had learned to funnel his understanding of himself through the imagined eyes of other people. He was left with only brief moments of relief that came from meeting someone else's standards of approval. More typically, however, John felt a nagging sense of emptiness. In contrast to how bereft John felt on the inside, he appeared extremely put together from the outside. Handsome, articulate, well-dressed, etc. The gap between how he seemed versus how he felt had left him extremely alone with these feelings. Many others couldn't believe that there was anything but being happy for him. John knew that he wanted to make his own decision and not worry so much about the impact on other people. He had no idea how to do this and felt connected to other people. John lived a double life, appearing to have it all together on the outside while feeling helpless to manage the emotional void within. Then it says the deeper experience of being a people pleaser. On the face of it, John might be called a people pleaser, someone who doesn't have all the self-confidence to assert their perspective when conflicts come up with someone else. I think this understanding of people pleaser is inaccurate at best and harmful at worst. John feels terrified to do anything but meet the needs of others. Given the choice between terror and an uncomfortable survival, most people will choose the latter. It needlessly adds to one's suffering to label this survival strategy as though it's a character defect. Similarly, well-meaning exhortations to just assert yourself and get comfortable saying no miss the boat. A more reasonable question to ask is, what experience has led to John to feel that the only way to be connected to others is to be of service to them? That's a key point. The root of needing to please others. Self-absorbed caregivers. Eugenia's mom. Children of self-absorbed parents often learn it is necessary to please others. Bing, bing, bing. John's mother was unable to see him as a separate individual who was entitled to his own point of view. She assumed that he wanted what she wanted and would impose upon him accordingly. John recalled countless instances where his expression of himself resulted in his mother's harsh yelling at him for putting her down or being inconsiderate. What did Eugenia say about everybody just yelling at her, coming in her room, coming in her space, and just yelling? When John was 5 years old, at McDonald's, his mother ordered him to throw away everyone's trash at the table. Upon returning to the table, he said, "I can't wait till I'm an adult and I can boss people around." To this, his mother's brow sharpened, her eyes squinted, and she spewed in a hateful tone, "Don't you ever say that I boss you around. Do you have any idea or even appreciate how much I do for you?" John recalled feeling like the ground had swallowed him up for that moment, the true making of a traumatic experience of shame. In addition to feeling so much shame in that moment, he received the message that standing up for himself hurts his mother. He became deeply aware of how easily she could be wounded and grew to feel overly responsible for her feelings. Experiences like this are what led to John's experience with terror and or extreme guilt at the prospect of doing anything but going along with what others wanted. Why did John's mother's self-absorption have such an impact on the life he lives today? As small kids, we are entirely dependent on our adult caregivers' willingness to take care of us. It's the only way to survive as a small creature in a big, dangerous world. When kids act in a way that seems to threaten their caregivers' willingness to love and protect them, kids develop theories to keep both parties safe. Think about that. It's interesting. In John's example, he learned that protesting his mother's condescending treatment of him resulted in her feeling wounded and getting him angrily rejected. He developed a theory that turned into a belief. I must protect the feelings of others at all times. This belief kept away the danger of his mother's feelings wounded by his individuality and consequently withdrawing her love from him. The downside was that John had to sacrifice, even abandon, his own point of view. He proceeded to grow up forbidding himself to know that he thought or felt out of fear would damage relationships with others. Beliefs that develop into relationships to one's caregivers tend to be felt very deeply and last for quite some time. So it's no wonder that John came to therapy valiantly struggling to disprove it. And this is the last one, what it feels like to be a people pleaser. John's grim belief made every moment of his life a challenge. He described interactions with other people as fraught with anxiety because he calibrated his responses based solely on what he thought they wanted to hear. So many people now have social anxiety. Sometimes I wonder if a lot of people, if it comes, now I'm not saying everybody, I can't diagnose, and it wouldn't be my place to, but if this isn't a core issue for a lot of people and why they might also feel some social anxiety. He felt like he was always on the verge of making a misstep and hurting them by not saying the right thing at the right time. He experienced high levels of tension in his body. When he was in the public settings, he would have a vague sense of danger and could quickly imagine catastrophic events breaking out that would put him in danger, from terrorist acts to physical confrontation, with every person he crossed on the street. In meetings at his job, he found eye contact to be particularly challenging. The only way he knew how to feel safe was to present an affirming, nodding posture toward the person speaking with him. When he averted his eyes, he had a creeping feeling that the speaker would feel insulted at his neglect. An exhausting process. His relationships tended to be short-lived except for one woman who treated him well at times, but poorly, and unpredictably so at others. I have one more thing. Again, I know I'm throwing a ton at you, but again, I think this is such a good topic. And I think this is good information for people to hear, so I want to go over this. This is called Confession. I am a people pleaser. This is from letsqueerthingsup.com, and it's fawning trauma response. It says, it took me a long time to realize this, though, because I'm opinionated and I speak my mind. I'm an open book about a lot of what I've been through. Clearly, I don't care what people think, right? But in the last year, I've come to understand that people-pleasing is a lot more complex than that. We all curate our lives to some extent, and for people-pleasers, the ways in which we do that, curating peace, often stems from a place of fear. Most people know about fight, flight, and freeze, but another trauma response, fawn, is at the core of what people-pleasing is actually about. To avoid conflict, negative emotion, and re-traumatization, people who fawn, when triggered, will go out of their way to mirror someone's opinions and appease them in order to de-escalate situations or potential issues. For me, this meant the more invested I was in an emotional connection, the less likely I was to criticize that person, vocalize where my boundaries were crossed, express unhappiness with their behavior, or share anything that I felt might damage that relationship. This could come across as being excessively nice and complimentary, overly concerned with another person's happiness, and waiting for cues in conversations to determine if something was safe to share or disclose. You could say that people pleasers are sort of emotional chameleons, trying to blend in order to feel safe. We try to embody whatever articulation of ourselves feels the least threatening to the person that we're trying to be close to. This can show up in a number of ways. People pleasers are often really warm, encouraging, and generous people. They tend to overextend themselves and say yes to everything and everyone, eager to make those they care about happy and comfortable. This tendency usually stems from childhood. They often grow up in controlling and chaotic environments, there we go, and internalize the idea that if they were perfectly good or well-behaved, they could minimize conflict and secure love and attachment. When you have this tendency to defer, make yourself subordinate, try to become smaller, ignore your boundaries and intuition, and minimize your own needs, you are profoundly vulnerable to that emotional bad experience. This vulnerability to do an emotional or physical bad experience is often a continuation of the familiar, chaotic dynamic from earlier in life. When you are excessively concerned with people pleasing others, you learn that in order to be effective at this, you must shut down your gut instincts, your values, your emotions, because being an individual rather than a mirror doesn't serve you in securing the love that you want. Or for some people, securing not continuing to get traumatized or be trauma. Or for some people, not continuing to have trauma come at them. You keep the peace as much as possible so people aren't going to be mean to you and traumatize you. That's why people pleasers can become drawn to bad relationships and repelled from relationships that are abundantly loving. We internalize the idea that love has to feel earned in order to feel secure. In other words, if love is given too freely or easily, it doesn't feel safe. This means people pleasers can be drawn to relationships that are controlling. They feel safest when they defer to others. Emotionally withholding, they are driven by the need to secure affection and feel elated when they do, and even bad relationships, their lack of boundaries are exploited. Another part of being vulnerable to this type of physical awfulness or mental or emotional awfulness, and I'm going to call it the A word, is that people pleasers are so easily gaslit because when they are inclined to suppress their own instincts, values, and beliefs, they're infinitely more likely to defer to the A word's version of events or narrative. I've been there. Sound off in the comments. You've been there? This also means that fawn types often go through cycles of restricting emotionally. I can't be too much for others. Yes. And then purging emotionally, unloading onto a trusted person because the expectation to be perfect and to repress gets to be too much. I think this is why so many of us have eating issues too. Nailing it. The way in which we restrict and purge emotionally can be reflected in the relationships we have with food. It's driven by the internal battle of being too much and not enough. It's fundamentally the same fear of simply being. Y'all, I'm getting chills. Having a back in the day Oprah moment. Here we go. An aha moment, as she calls it. It's important to understand that fawning isn't intended to manipulate others. This is why I'm saying I think Eugenia is actually well intended. It's not exactly dishonest either. Every single person presents a version of themselves to others. This merely describes how trauma informs the presentation on an often unconscious level. The fawn response is driven by fear, not a hidden agenda. The fawn type is less about manipulation because it's not about using not about being used to overpower someone. Instead, it's an excessive relinquishing of personal power driven by fear and a desire for validation or to not want to get trauma. For example, somebody who runs personal errands for their boss despite it not being part of their job description is not manipulating their boss into liking them. It wouldn't work anyway. Their boss, testing those thin boundaries, is exploiting their need for approval. In more intimate relationships, this can show up as fawn types gravitating towards hot-cold dynamics where affection and love are offered unpredictably. So I don't want to go into all of it. And if you want to see this, guys, I'll put the links up in the description so you can see these things for yourself and go check them out because it's really, this is some interesting reads on these. But this is why I'm saying, guys, I think when people keep talking about toxic positivity, on the one hand, I see what they're saying, and I do think there's some truth to it, but I want to go deeper with it. And I think if we go deeper with it, what Eugenia is really trying to do, per the dynamic we're seeing with her family and specifically her mother, is people please. Remember the video I had up, and if you haven't seen it, go see it, where Jaclyn Glenn talks about the fact that Eugenia's mother was just screaming and cursing and threatening her up one side and down the other. If she's like that with Jaclyn, who isn't a family member or a child, imagine what she's like with Eugenia when Eugenia admits the family does that to her. Yet then they all pressure her and rely on her to make the money for everyone. As a result, she's probably forced in this bubble where she has hardly any control of her life, and we have heard her life is controlled and manipulated nonstop. And she's gotten so much attention and has become so known for the eating issues. I think it's possible that her family perpetuates those issues because they think, well, if it stopped happening, she'd stop being the money train. Because why else would your daughter be that thin and having that many issues and you didn't get her help? A friend had to step in and then you started threatening the friend and said, I'm going to send the police after you for kidnapping. When she was taken away and deemed that you shouldn't, you need help. You need absolute help. It doesn't add up to me. So that's why I think I would say this. Please don't be too nasty or negative or harsh on Eugenia. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't own up to and take responsibility for things. I really think she is trying to survive what could be an impossible situation, and she's probably not even fully aware of all of it. It's not because she's dumb. It's because it's not that. I think she's very intelligent. To build what she's built on YouTube, she's very intelligent. It's just it takes years to dissect and unravel this. And right now, while she's still in the thick of what's going on, a lot of times when you're still in the middle of it, you're not going to be able to see what's going on or get out of it. And then it takes a while. Like I said, I'm 36 going on 37, and I'm still learning about all the ways that I people please. My situation is a bit different because I'm chronically ill and I have very little help except for the kindness of an ex-boyfriend. So for me, it's survival instincts that come up, and I will end up people pleasing, and I will end up trying to make people happy, and I'm an entertainer, so I'll joke and make people laugh and be goofy and try to make you feel good around me. But I end up devaluing myself in the process because I don't allow myself to really be a human being. I'm just living to make sure everybody else is okay. Because if they're not okay, I might not be okay because they'll do things to me. And I have no help in my life, and I have nobody to help me. And, I have all these physical issues. So, I got to keep things in balance. So my struggle's a little bit different. But at the end of the day, when you look at her struggle, it's a little bit the same. I've said this before, we don't know what her health is. And no matter what, if we know that there's at least an eating issue, her health can't be great, having gone through it this long, being as small as she is. That's another thing I might want to dive into, are some of the health risks when it comes to some of this stuff. And I'm really praying for her, and I hope what I'm saying, this is the other thing, I hope this is wrong. There are times where it's like, you just don't want to be right about something, but you kind of feel it in your gut and you're seeing all the warning signs. And that's kind of how I'm feeling lately about this Eugenia Cooney situation. I'm looking at it going, I don't want to be right about this. But if I am, I hope that when Eugenia is ready, and I think that ready happens for everybody differently, that she takes those steps out. Like I remember probably one of the worst relationships I was in. It was a lot of the A word, physically, mentally, emotionally, very bad. And I remember one night after, being yelled at and punished and this, that, and the other, I said, I have to go to work tomorrow to pay for all our bills. This person would just put us in a horrific financial positions, and I was the one that had to clean it up. And the person decided they didn't want to work, so I was the only one working. And I would get punished by, if the person was upset with me, I wasn't allowed to take the car that I was paying for to work. It was bad. There was a lot of bad stuff. Trust me when I say, like, people holding guns up to my head bad. It was bad. But for me, for some reason, the straw that broke the camel's back, I went into our bedroom. I hate even thinking about this time in my life. And I went to lay down and I turned on a tiny TV that was in there just to try to watch The Office and zone out. Got mad because I was being punished. I wasn't allowed to watch TV. And I said, I'm going to watch TV. And the person said, that's my TV. You don't get to watch it. And I said, I pay for the electricity. Person came in, took the TV, and angrily stormed out screaming at me. And I don't know why. Out of all the awful things, and if you've ever been through a bad relationship, I know you can probably relate to this. At some point, there's a breaking point. It might not make sense, and it might be minor in terms of what actually sparks it, but that was the moment when I was like, I'm done. I don't know why, but that moment I was like, I'm done being devalued. And shortly after that, I got out of there, and thank God that I did. So when she is ready, and this is the other part, nobody can force her to be ready to walk away from a toxic family dynamic like this. And in her situation, because her health is probably so fragile with what's going on, it's not going to be as easy. But when she is ready, I'm just praying that happens sooner than later, and that she can walk out of there okay. I think we're all praying for that. I hope I'm wrong. I really want to be wrong. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think I'm right on this? Does this sound correct? Sound off in the comments if you think that I am. I have all the love and respect in the world for her, and I hope that she's okay, and I hope that she gets whatever help that she needs. Guys, if you like the video, please help me on my channel and give me a big thumbs up, like the video, subscribe, and then hit the notification bell so you can know when I upload. Also, you guys leave comments. Let me know what you think. I really want to hear what your opinions are. Do you think I'm Do you think I'm right on this? Do you think I'm off? Let me know. And guys, please share this content with anybody you think that could benefit from it, from people you think would enjoy it, just whoever. I'd appreciate that. And then go check out the other videos if you haven't seen them. Let me know what you think about those. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this video and get to work on others. I just also want to tell you guys the channel has been doing so well, like way better than I expected. I didn't expect this kind of response, and I didn't expect to gain subscribers as quickly. Everybody, the majority of people have been so nice. I just want to say a big, huge thank you to every single person who has been so kind to me, and to all of you who have welcomed me back. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm happy to be with you guys, and I hope you're enjoying the content that I'm doing. Okay, guys, take care. Blessings. I'm sending you all love, and until the next video, I'm giving you guys hugs, mwah, and kisses. Bye, guys.